around Halloween time, I always get scared. I always get terrified. I'm a pretty big wimp like that, and I'm always afraid of what's behind the corner or entering a dark room. I'm just afraid like that, and I don't know if you're afraid or not, but sometimes we can be afraid in different situations as well. In fact, sometimes we can be afraid to go against what other people are doing, like especially if a whole lot of people are thinking this one thing and you're thinking something different. And so today's story, we're going to look at how two people chose to think differently about something that they had to do. And I want to see what they did and how it either worked out for them or against them. So today I want to read a story about how a bunch of people had a mission to do, but how two people stood against the crowd and against what other people wanted to do. And I wanted to see how this plays out, both for the two people and the mass as a whole, okay? So I want you to pause the video right now, read this story, answer these few questions, and when you're done, press play, and we'll continue from there. Okay, so 12 men were chosen on this very important mission to go into the land of Canaan, the promised land that God had promised the Israelites after they left Egypt, to go to this land. And they were there. And so Moses sent those 12 people in to go explore it and see if they can take over that land. Now, out of the 12 people, 10 of them, 10, said, "This is the greatest land, this is awesome, but we can't take this land." However, 2 of them said, "It's a great land, it's awesome, but we can do it and God can help us do it." Well, what do you think the people decided to do? What do you think the Israelites decided to do? Do you think they chose to go into the land or not go into the land? They chose not to go into the land. They were afraid. But what Caleb and Joshua did was they stood against the fear and said, "We can do it with God's help." However, no matter how much convincing they tried to do, the Israelites were not going to go in that land. And in fact, because they chose not to go in that land, the land that God had promised them to have, they had to wait many years to go into that land. They eventually got into it, but because they chose not to do it at that moment, because they were afraid, they had to wait a lot longer to get into that land. Years, decades of time to go into that land. But what Caleb and Joshua showed us was real leadership. They chose to trust God. And what the bottom line of today's story is, you can do what you should even when others are afraid. Hey, there are going to be decisions that you have to make in your life. And other people may be scared to make those tough decisions. But you can still do what you should, even when others are afraid, by trusting God. Pray to God and ask Him to guide you and lead you and see where He leads you. The more we trust God, the more secure we'll be able to be and less afraid and stronger we'll be able to be to make those decisions like Joshua and Caleb did. And had the Israelites just done what they should have done and trusted God and trusted what Caleb and Joshua were talking about, they could have gotten in that land a whole lot sooner. But they had to wait and wait and wait because they were afraid. But be like Joshua and Caleb in those tough situations you encounter and trust God and do what you should even when other people are afraid. So that is the challenge for us today. Hey, I would love to hear your stories on this. Have you had a time when you've had to trust God even when you or other people were afraid? And how did it work out for you? Hey, I would love to hear your stories. Put it in the comment section below. I would love to hear your stories. All right, hey, as we wrap up this series, I want to look over the memory verse we've been talking about for the past few weeks. Joshua 1:9, "Be strong and brave, do not be afraid, do not lose hope. I am the Lord your God, I will be with you everywhere you go." Don't be afraid, be strong, trust God, and He will be with us and He'll guide us through every situation you encounter, whether you're scared or not. So that's the challenge again for this week. Trust God, allow Him to lead you even when other people or yourself are afraid. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week with a whole new story. Have a great week, everyone.